Okay, so you can see I have a nice even gather, and you would go as much or as little as you want depending on how wide you want your skirt to be. At this point, I take the top portion of my dress and lay it down, and I lay this here to see how far I want it to go. I don't want it to go all the way to the edges because those are going to wrap around your body, but I do want it to come at least to the edge of the arm strap, maybe a little bit further over, so I'm going to keep it about that length. Now I'm going to take the top portion of the dress and determine which is the front and back. I'm fine with this being my front. So I'm going to take the good side like this, and I'm going to lay it on top of the good side of my skirt. Good side to good side. But I'm going to peel back the second layer here. So I only have the front good side laying against my skirt. Now I will take pins and pin this skirt onto the top layer of the good side of my top half. Usually I find out where the center of my skirt is by folding it in half, and here it is right there. Keep my finger on it, maybe stick a little pin in there so that I can determine where the center of this top is as well. It's right here, so I'm going to take it and I'm going to pin it right there with the pin sticking out and go all the way across, making sure to balance out your ruffle. Okay, so I have it all pinned along the way, and if you were to flip this up, you can see how this is becoming a little dress. So, again, pinned the length of the skirt to the good side of the bodice. And we're going to go over to the sewing machine and sew this together close to the rough edge. So now I'm going to take this, being sure to keep the second layer of the bodice out of the way, and I'm going to tuck this into the sewing machine like so, and sew pretty close to the rough edge here. All the way down till I get to the end of the gathered skirt, and then go do a back stitch at the beginning and the end to knot it off. Okay, so I have a little seam going all the way across here on the rough edges, and I'll remove the needles now so I can pull it open. Okay, so we remove the last needle, and now there's the inside. If I pull this down here, it'll cover that up, but we'll show you that next. But here's a little front view. See, the seam is nice and clean. But if you look very closely here, there's still the black double seams that I put in when I gathered it. So I'm going to find those long strings here and cut them with a seam ripper and pull them out so that they won't show. So I'll come in here and just every so often kind of snip some of those black threads. That way I can get a start to one of them and they'll slip out a little more easily. Okay, so now I've pulled all those little black threads out of there that were gathering it, because now it's being held in place by the stitch that we did to the bodice. So now we will take this is the back side of the dress. We're going to take this and fold it over a little bit and overlap all of this gathered area that's messy. We're going to overlap it and bring it right to that pink seam that I did before to attach the skirt, and put pins through it all the way along, folding it once and overlapping so that I have this completely pinned in place. Okay, so I've pinned the whole inside of the dress down, the bodice to the skirt, and I'm going to go ahead and sew really close to this edge. But you don't have to be too careful, because we will be putting a finishing border on the other side that will hide the seams. Okay, I've attached it, so I'll remove the needles. Okay, so removed all the needles. If I turn it around here, I'll give you a close look there. You can see the seam right there. But we are now going to take this sequin border that I purchased and attach it over that to give it a waistline. Okay, so I've pinned this sequin border all the way to the very end. And remember, I left these ends open so I could wrap it around the back side. So when I sew, it'll be tucked in. So I'm going to sew all the way around, being sure not to catch this back side of the side strap just yet. Actually, I decided to take this off up until the skirt point because I forgot that at this point you need to tuck these ends under so they're not a rough edge and make a little hem right there. So I'm going to do that now. So I'm just folding it over one time. This is the side strap that goes under her chest, like so. That way there won't be a rough edge when I close it. And now I'm going to take the sequence and bring it across here again like I had it and pin it, not attaching it to the side where we'll be closing it off eventually. Okay, so I'm going to connect this with one simple seam down the middle of the sequined border. Just to keep it in place. Okay, so we have that attached all the way across here, and it's tucked in on the insides and sewn in. So now we're going to flip it over and take the back side of the strap and fold that edge in and sew it along here so it attaches the two. Okay? Okay, and so one of the final steps would be to take these, here's the dress, to take the side straps here and tuck all this raw material down into the opening and then sew a little seam right across the edge. You could do a little blind hem here so that you didn't actually see the seam, but I don't mind because it's going to have Velcro sewn on it and it'll be on the underside of the dog. So go ahead and do that to both sides. Okay, so at this point, we have our dress completely closed off on the ends, and now it's time to measure where to put the Velcro on your dog. So here's Posey looking a mess right now, but go ahead and lay it over your dog, wrap these front ones around her neck, and figure out about how many, I just use my fingers, about how many fingers they overlap each other, the straps. Okay, so I've got it, and I pretty much usually know from dress to dress, but I'm going to do about 2 to 3 fingers on each, going the Velcro that wide. So I'll take my Velcro. I'm going to do a little bit bigger than 2 fingers, so right about there. That'll be the tummy strap, and then about the same for the neck strap. And if you're worried, you can actually go ahead and make your Velcro strip a little longer. That way you can make it tighter, and as she gets bigger, you can loosen it a little bit by not closing it as much. So do that, and I cut through both layers. So when you put it onto the dress, Posey's barking for a treat again, as she does. This will go on the outside because when you bring it around, the next strip, the soft side, will be on the inside so that these match up. And the same with the neck. If you're good, I just do basically the same thing that I did on this one. So I would take this one here and sew this on the good side and the other one on the inside. That way they match up. Okay, so we'll do that with the sewing machine. Okay, so that's completely sewn on now so that they will latch together at the waistline and the neckline. So if you take your dress, secure it to your dog. If you measured everything properly, it should just fit like a glove. At this point, you can be completely done with your dress, or you can add a little embellishment such as a flower or a bow, anything you want. You could sew on a cluster of buttons. There's so many fun things you could do with this to embellish your dress. You could add ribbons to the bodice. There's so much you could do. You could add lace to the bottom hemline. So I'm going to work on maybe a little embellishment, but this is how you make a dog dress. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. So I went ahead really quickly and made a little poof to put on Posey's dress here. The lighting is not really good. Let me pull the camera up this way and see if that helps. I just added that on. I made it with some black tulle and added a little strip of her sparkly fabric into it as well, and just hand stitched that on really quickly. And I think that finishes the dress off nicely. So we'll give a little shot of Posey at the end as well.